my fellow comic book collectors, it's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and today is Sunday and I do my hottest comics of the week for the Golden Age. And I'm going to do something a little different with this first book. This is what I consider, it's not like it sold for a record price, it's actually the opposite. I think this was the deal of the week or the steal of the week. It was just a great bargain that somebody got on this first book. So the first book is Crime Mysteries number 11. Now, this is from 1954. It's a crazy strangulation cover. You got these police kind of looking for the culprit, and he's basically sticking his arms out and he's about to strangle a woman. It's just such a great cover. It's one that's actually on my want list. It's a book that I'd really like to get. So I was like, wow, when I saw this sale, I was like, oh my goodness, I missed out. So this was a 5.5 that sold, and it sold for $370. Now the prior record for this book, so this is a 5.5, so really good grade. So it sold for $370. The prior record for this book was $675 back in 2019. So this is actually way down, like almost half of what the prior record set 4 years ago was. So just a really good price. I think somebody got a real bargain on this book. If I had seen it, I would have totally grabbed it. But yeah, $370. There are 19 copies of this book on the census, and only 18 of those are universal blue labels. So just a great deal of the week. If you like this idea of me putting one book, which is a deal of the week or a steal of the week, please put it in the comments below if you like that idea. So just tell me. Okay, so the next one, these are all record sales from here on end, was a Batman 22. Now I actually have this book in my collection. This is from May of 1944. It actually features the first skinny Alfred appearance. So before, if you look at the earlier Batmans, he was kind of pudgy. He was more like a bigger guy. In this, he's sort of tall and lanky, and this is his first cover appearance. So it's also the first time we get Alfred in his own solo story. So lots of cool features to this book, and it's from May of 1944, just a great book. Now this was a record sale. It was a CGC 7.0, and it sold for $1,624.99. The prior record for this book was set back in June of 2021, and it was sold, had a previous record of $1,200. So this is up 50% almost from the prior record. Is that 50%? Yeah, somewhere around there. Like math. 40, let's say 40% actually. Okay, there are 185 copies on the census, and 185 universal labels, and 212 altogether. So just a really great sale for this kind of a key book for those who like Alfred. Well, this is the book for you because he's on the cover. So a really great one. That's number 9 on the list. Number 8 on the list is Millie the Model, number 50. This is from 1954. It's from Marvel Comics, and there's a lot of really great things about this book. It's a Stan Lee story, and it's also Dan DeCarlo cover art, which, you know, two major guys in the comic book industry, so pretty major book. It's a movie theater scene, which is, you know, got this great good girl art vibe to it. Now there are no prior sales to this book, so this is like this is one of those things where it just sold and we don't really know if it was a good price or a bad price. And that's one of the things that's really interesting, is figuring out whether it's a good price or a bad price. And that's where this sale is kind of a key sale, and that I really want to point out. So this was an eBay sale and it was like listed at $899 for a 5.5 grade. So it was listed at $899, but what did it sell for? So it had a best offer on it, and somebody gave an offer of $360 on it, and it was accepted. So $360 is what it actually sold for. Now, here's the interesting part. On Go Collect, they record this as a $900 sale. Well, it didn't sell for $900, it sold for $360. But they recorded it as a $900 sales. So now people are listing the same book on eBay in different lower grades for 600 plus. So this best offer price, the original listing price is setting the market, even though it's actually mistaken setting the market. So it's very interesting. This can happen where people they go collect. They say, "Oh, okay, the prior sale was $900," and then they judge. They basically price their books at like a fair price based on that price. So really interesting sale in that respect, that it's setting the market, and it's setting it incorrectly, but it's setting the market for this book. There's only 5 copies on the census, and all of them are universal grade. All of them are fairly like mid to high grade copies. This is not a book that prior sale, like there's just no information about it. There was a previous there was no previous thing, so it's not like people were submitting this to CGC thinking that it's a valuable book. So that's the other cool thing about this. So maybe we'll see in the future that because of this sale, people will be like, oh, this is a valuable book, I got to send it off to CGC, and we'll see that census change. But just thought it was a really interesting one. I just wanted to point that out. So number 7 on the list is More Fun Comics number 102. This is another book I actually have in my collection, and so I was like happy to see this one on the list. This is from March of 1945, and it's actually a double key. It's the second appearance of Superboy. Superboy made his first appearance in More Fun Comics 101, but he's not on the cover of 101. He's not on the cover of 102, so he's not even on the cover of this one. But Dover and Clover, which are these 2 guys that are kind of goofy, they make their first cover appearance on this book. So it's their first cover appearance. It's a Henry Boltonov cover, and yeah, so this was it's kind of an interesting book because it is a double key. It is the second appearance of Superboy, which is fairly collectible. Actually, that's the reason I picked it up, because I thought, oh, I'm never going to get the first appearance, I might as well get the second appearance. Ended up getting the first appearance later on, but it was cool at the time. So this was a sale for a 2.5, CGC 2.5, and it sold for $503. Now, the prior record for this book was set back in 2017. This book doesn't sell that often. It's a fairly rare book. And it had a prior record of $117. So this is like 5 times, almost 5 times the prior record. So yeah, just a really good sale for this book. There are 29 copies of this book on the census, and 28 of them are universal blue labels. So just a really fairly rare book. Like the More Fun comics are really ones that are in a way kind of overlooked. There's a lot of keys within that run, and people are just starting to learn about this series that actually ran fairly long. This is book 102, for example, and it was like one that did feature first Aquaman, first Superboy, first Green Arrow, first Speedy. A lot of major characters made their first appearances in More Fun Comics. So definitely a title that is underrated, but this sale does bode well for it because it is a big record. Okay, so number 6 on the list is Weird Mysteries number 7. And this is another book that I actually have in my collection. And the reason I have it is this is from October of 1953, and it was mentioned in The Seduction of the Innocent. So The Seduction of the Innocent, for those who are not familiar with it, was the book that kind of led to the Comic Code Authority and the end of the Golden Age. So it was the catalyst that basically inspired people to say, okay, we gotta talk comics. We gotta sort out these comics because they're messing up our children. And this book was mentioned not only in the in The Seduction of the Innocent, but it was mentioned within the lithographs inside of the book of Seduction of the Innocent. They would actually show pictures of certain comics that were a little bit more notorious. And this one actually featured on 2 of those panels. So it was on number 35 and number 36. On number 35, it shows a picture and then it says "Indeed." And then on 36, it's like a gory picture and it says "Sex and Blood." So it just makes it extra notorious. Now this is just a really great cover by Bernard Bailey. So it's got this Bernard Bailey very desirable cover, and it also has this kind of notorious rep because it is from The Seduction of the Innocent. So just a kind of a major book. Now this had a 2.5 sale for $757. Now that's a record. The previous record was set back in 2021 for $711. So it's slightly up from that 2021 record. But to give you a sense of how much this book has climbed within the recent years, back in 2016, this book had a prior record sale for $113. So it's gone up a lot in the last 6 years, so 6-7 years. So just a really great book, one that I'm happy to have in my collection. There are 72 of these books on the census, and 64 of them are universal grade. Okay, Blue Label, I should say. Okay, number 5 on the list is Comedy Comics number 1. This is a book I actually just picked up recently, so I'm happy to see it on the list. This is from May of 1948, and this is a Timely Comics book. It actually has Millie the model, Tess the typist, and HEDY Divine in it. So that's kind of the key about it. It's there where they kind of begin in this book. It's not their first appearances, but they begin in this title. It's a Morris Weitz and Harry Kurtzman cover art. Okay, so there's no prior record for this book, but we'll get into the price. So what this book, it was a 5.5 that's sold, and it was listed at $650, but it was the best offer, and it sold for $585. Now, there were no previous sales data for this book in that grade, like in a 5.5, but there was a 6.0 that sold for $360 in 2020. So this is actually up almost double from the prior value for this book. Like, you know, you would say that it would be a little bit under a 6.0. So this is a 5.5 and it sold for almost double what a 6.0 sold for. So it was a very strong sale. There are 28 universal blue labels and 29 of these on the census. So fairly rare book, and it is kind of a major key because it does feature, Harvey Kurtzman is a kind of a collected artist, and it does feature 3 major Good Girl art characters. So definitely one that people collect, and it's also a timely. So another reason why people go after this book, people that like getting those early Marvel comics. Okay, so next on the list is number 4. Tip Top Comics number 29. And this book is from 1938. It's from Universal Features / Dell Publications. And it's a Captain and Kids cover. Now this is kind of an interesting book, and another book that I kind of wanted to highlight because it's one where a lot of times these Tip Top comics, funnies, like, you know, more funnies, there's a bunch of comics where they don't have a key per se, but they are a golden age. And sometimes what will happen is people will kind of think that they're more valuable than they really are. So just because it's old doesn't make it valuable. And this is old, it's from 1938. But once I get into the numbers, you'll see that maybe this was a bit of an overpay. So this book was in a 7.0, so high grade, and it sold for $599. Now, a GPA shows the price at $550, but so it's sort of questionable if it sold for $599 or if it sold for $550. But I'm going to take the listing price, which was $599. Now, the prior record for this book was set in 2021 for $264. So this is basically more than double what the prior record was. And that's where I have to kind of explain this. So, you know, it's a fairly high grade. It's a 7.0. And there's only 4 copies on the census in Universal Blue Label. But if you look at all 4 copies, they're all high grade. So what happens with this particular book and books that are similar to it, where there's no key element to it, it's not a good girl cover, it doesn't have like an exceptionally great cover, it's just Captain and the kids kind of playing on the cover. It's just, there's nothing super special about this book, but it is old. You know, that's the thing that's going for it. So if you look at the census, the only people that submit this book are the ones that have it in high grade. So that's why there's only 4 on the census. It's not necessarily rare, but there's only a few on the census because it's not one of those books that had sales that would justify putting it, like getting it submitted, because it just, you know, wasn't worth submitting. You're paying more for the submission costs than you are for the actual value that you can get out of it. So that's the reason why people would only submit the highest graded copies. So the prior record was $264, and that's kind of normal for these books, these sort of mid-issue or mid-series books that don't have any keys to them. And a lot of the time people get confused, that they think, oh, okay, it's a cool book because it's old and golden age, or almost platinum age. This is barely golden age. You know, they don't assume that. Really, whenever you buy kind of these older books, do some research. Look for what gives it the value. It's not just age. Age is one thing. You can buy books from 1925 that you can pay like $20 for. You know, it's just like, I bought my first appearance of Annie, you know, Orphan Annie, from 1925 for $30. And, you know, it is a key appearance. It is, you know, a major book, but it doesn't have the value. It doesn't have it's not considered a valuable book. And that's what you got to watch out for, that, you know, really do your research when you buy these books, because there might be more of them than what the census might imply. And it might not be the good investment to buy it at that high price. It seems like a good price on the surface because it is such a high grade, but that doesn't necessarily reflect in future sales. So just one to be aware of, and that's why I put it on the list. It was a record sale, but I'd be really cautious about that book. Okay, so the next book, number 3 on my list, is Black Cat Comics number 12. And again, this is like a crazy sale. This is a 1948 book from Harvey Publications. Black Cat is a superhero character. This is actually a very interesting title because it starts out with her, you know, she's a Hollywood celebrity kind of thing, and she does judo, and she uses that to fight crime. And it then became a Western title for a little bit, kind of Western style, and then it became a horror style title, and actually had some pretty classic covers when it was a horror title. So it's just this cover is like when it's kind of in that Western phase where she's like riding a horse, and like her first appearance, like first cover, first issue in the title, she's riding a motorbike. And it was later that she kind of got onto a horse and would do all these kind of Western style covers. So this is a great cover. It's a nice red cover with her riding the horse. But it isn't necessarily a key for her run. But this was a massive sale. So this was 6.5 that sold, and it sold for $1,095. To give you a sense of how massive this sale was, the prior record for this book was $144 set back in 2017. So this is just it's just like almost 8 times the previous record, which is insane for the Golden Age. You don't get that much of a jump in price. So just a really big sale for this book. Somebody must have really wanted it because they paid a lot for it. Again, before you buy, do your research, because I think this was a big overpay. There are 13 copies of this book on the census, and only 12 of those are Universal Blue Label. So just an interesting sale. Again, similar to the previous sale where it's just this, I think, a bit of an overpay. Sometimes it happens, you know, especially people don't, you know, there might not be that many available, and people just say, oh, it must be worth this much because it's, you know, listed for that, but it doesn't make it true. Okay, the next book is actually a really interesting one. This is American Air Forces number 2. This is a 1944 book from Magazine Enterprises. And it's just a classic cover. It's a great cover, actually. You got Uncle Sam, and he's sending all these fighters to attack the Japanese. And you got Tojo on the cover, and he's just being like, it's almost like he's like being attacked by a swarm of bees or flies or something. He's just being inundated. He's massive, but he's getting attacked by all these little planes. It's a really classic cover. It's, you know, one of these classic propaganda covers. So very sought after cover. One that actually is on my want list. I actually would like to get this book. And this was a very interesting sale. It was a 6.5 that sold, and it sold for $1,200. That's a really big sale for this book. The previous record for this book is from March of 2023, so just like a month or 2 ago, 2 months ago. It sold for $750. So this is almost double in, like, it's up like 50% or 60%. I don't know. Math, we'll pretend, okay? We'll pretend on that. Yeah, it's almost like 50%. Okay, a little bit more than 50%, 50, 60%. So the point is, it's up a lot in a very short time. And I think part of the reason for that was this book is one of those books that is actually fairly common in terms of number of copies that you might see for it. It's one that you don't see for many years, and then you find a copy. But it's one of those ones that you don't see in high grade very often. So it's like once it goes above a 5.0, it gets quite scarce. It's not as common to see it in those higher grades. The lower grades are fairly affordable because of the fact that they are fairly common. But higher grades are rare. So sometimes people will pay up for those higher grades based on, you know, just the scarcity of those higher grades. So that's what I think happened here. There are 47 copies on the census, and 46 of those are universal blue labels. So just a great book, and one that people are willing to pay up for in those higher grades. So just something to consider. Okay, next on the list, number 1. This is a really great book. This is one that I really want. It's like really high on my want list. This is Detective Comics number 122. And this is from April of 1947. And the reason I want this book, the reason I want this is it's the first time that we see Catwoman on the cover of Batman. Well, Batman related books. It's actually, she makes her first cover appearance in Detective Comics. This is Detective Comics 122. Then she makes her first cover appearance in Batman in a later issue. So this is just a kind of a key book for Catwoman. Also, it's with her with that new suit. Like her original suit in Batman number 3 is just a cat mask. This is where she gets the proper Catwoman suit that we kind of recognize today. So this is a really great book just because it's her first cover appearance. Big key. And this was a very interesting book because this was a 4.5 that sold, and it sold for $4,800, which is a record. But this is an interesting book. This book got really hot for some reason back in 2017. It got really hot. It kind of went like for record sales back then for $4,200. That was the big record at that time. Just a huge sale. After that time, though, this book had really dropped. The prior sale to this currently one that I'm talking about was for $2,830. So it had actually dropped quite considerably from its prior record, and that was in 2019. So it went from being in 2017 for $4,200, then it dropped over a course of 2 years. It kept on, like there was sales after sales, and each sale was like slightly less, and it dropped all the way to $2,830. So it just dropped like almost over like $1,400 lost in value. So this sale really brings it back up. So really we got to compare it to that prior sale, the most recent sale, and this is up almost 80%. So it's just a really good recovery for this book. You know, it had sort of a bit of a drop there, but it's recovered since, which is really nice to see. This is a Charles Paris cover, and it's a classic cover because it is that first Catwoman cover. It's definitely high on my want list, and there are 124 of these on the census, and 111 of them are universal blue labels. So just a great book, definitely one that I hope to find someday. And that's it for this episode. So if you enjoy this, and if you enjoy these hot lists, please subscribe to the channel, give me a like, and also comment. What books did you like from this list? Did you have any of the books from this list? I always like to hear it. I'm one of those guys that whenever I see these hot lists, I always go, oh, do I have that book? And I check and I say, okay, I have 5 out of the 10 or whatever it is. I always do that. That's a game that I like to play. Yeah, on this list, I had, it looks like I had 4 of the books that are on this list. So I was quite pleased to have a lot of my books represented here. So thanks again for watching. Bye for now.